Hey y'all, it's Kim. So the Democrats, their approval rating is so low right now, and they're trying to win back different segments, of the voting class or whatever you want to call it. The different categories, black, Hispanic, male, female, blah blah blah. Uh, However they want to divvy people up. But anyway, I think they've got this new thing I've heard recently where they're spending $20 million to send out a woman, and not a very attractive one, to try to get young voters, like male voters, back. I mean, this is like not cool at all. Let's see what Miss Rita has to say about it. It says Democrats' secret weapon to entice back young male voters. I've seen this lady before. She's a typical like liberal. I've never listened to her. Don't care to see her. She's, like I said, the least attractive person they could have picked for that. I mean, why would you think that trying to use a woman like her to entice young male voters back? I mean, she's the last one you would use. I mean, you would think that you would try to use some of your strong men in the party, but they really don't even know how to identify what a man or a woman is, right? I mean, that's we have a Supreme Court justice who said that I can't identify a woman, or what a woman is, because I'm not a biologist. Okay, so they want to divide people up in categories, but then you can't identify what the category is. Make it make sense. I guess that's liberal logic. Anyway, I'm just gonna let her get after it because it's just ridiculous.
It's time for Lefties Losing It, and we've got some gems for you tonight. Let's start with the Democrats finally realizing they have a problem with young men. Yes, young men have abandoned the party in droves, and the Dems think they have just the woman to lure them back.
Oh, Lord.
As the saying goes, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Yes, that's Democrat operative influencer Olivia Juliana, and she loves young men. She loves the frat boys, and she thinks she understands them and how to bring them back to the Democrats.
I spent a lot of time on college campuses, and I spent a lot of time with
young men.
I love young men. I love frat guys. And in that, I realized, like, even the ones that identify as conservative are almost always pro-choice. They're almost always pro-gay marriage. You'd be surprised at the number of them who support Black Lives Matter.
Yes, I'm sure conservative young men are huge backers of the neo-Marxist, anti-American, anti-police movement known as BLM. And I'm sure this will see them return to the Democrats in huge numbers.
I'm angry that the ocean is on fire at 3 different places, and we have billionaires who are racing to see who can get to space faster. The same billionaires who don't pay their workers fairly, the same billionaires who don't pay their fair share in taxes.
What the hell is she talking about?
Work. Now, here is a law professor and wife of MSNBC host Chris Hayes, Kate Shaw, who decided to lie or at least mislead Senator John Kennedy from the great state of Louisiana, and that was a mistake. Big mistake. Huge.
You said there are some members of the Supreme Court that are evil.
Oh, I saw this morning.
Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take it your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word.
I don't
guess
recall.
What you said. You were talking about the majority opinion in Muldrow v. City of St. Louis. You said, quote, Justice Kagan, will she be able to control the opinion's future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not, end quote. Who are you talking about?
Sir, I'm very skeptical. If it's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said
No, you said it.
Yeah.
Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some of the members of the Supreme Court evil. Now, which ones do you think are evil?
I would have to refresh my recollection. I've been very critical
You're
of some
embarrassed
members of the
that
Supreme
you made
Court.
that statement, aren't you?
I'm
You're an officer
it doesn't sound like something that
You know
I
what
would
I'm
say.
embarrassed
Yeah.
at? That you're teaching our kids.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil
You did,
in the
right here
in the classroom,
on
sir.
podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
He brings the receipts.
As Dallas. and you're an officer of the court, and you're here advising us to be respectful of federal judges, and you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court? Gag me with a spoon.
Gag me with a spoon, indeed. How many times did she lie or mislead there, claiming she never said it?
I don't recall.
Was a transcription error. It's not language she'd use. Well, Professor Shaw, as the kids say, here is the receipt. And by the way, she said this only last year.
The result, deftly constructed opinion by Justice Kagan. I mean, will she be able to control its potential future distortion by her evil colleagues?
Now, this is how you handle the leftist activist media. You do not allow them to play linguistic games. Don't allow them to obscure the truth by using their preferred terms that are inaccurate and designed to manipulate. Watch Stephen Miller on CNN give a masterclass on how you handle these activists.
An undocumented migrant sent a letter threatening to kill the president, promising to self-deport after the assassination. CNN reporting shows that investigators believe the migrant was set up. It was a victim of a setup. What is the administration going to do now? And this is an undocumented immigrant. I do want to note that, but this was someone who came forward, was a victim of a crime,
alien.
and now law enforcement believes he was set up. Go ahead.
Well, I want to clarify what you mean. So we're talking about the same thing. Are you saying this immigrant was here illegally?
Yes, but I am, and that's why I said that. I clarified that.
You said undocumented, and I wasn't clear what that means. I'm assuming they have a fake ID. I'm assuming they have a fake social security number.
That's neither here nor there. That's getting away from the question, Stephen. I want this to be, and call me naive, a good faith discussion about what's happening right now.
When we use language that's designed to obscure the truth, that's not good faith.
All right,
an illegal alien is an illegal alien. They're not an undocumented migrant.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, that is fine. Don't let the left play these word games to deliberately conceal the truth, to manipulate. Remember, he who controls the language controls the masses. Don't be controlled. And the lawfare with the Democrats has never stopped. It didn't ultimately work in stopping President Donald Trump from being re-elected, but now that he is in power, the Democrats are again using and misusing the courts and Democrat-appointed judges to undermine the president's power and to usurp the will of the American people. Here is Democrat Rep. Laura Friedman explaining it all.
Every single week, we have a litigation working group where a large group of us, and I'm talking there's maybe 75 members of the House, sit down every single week with the AGs to talk about legal strategy. This is all going on every single week behind the scenes. It is nonstop talk, nonstop introduction of bills and legislation.
Joining me now is Newsweek's senior editor-at-large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel Josh Hammer. Josh, you coined the term judicial insurrection, and we see examples of it almost on a weekly basis.
Jeez.
Yeah, the Democrats, Rita, apparently are not content to throw out hundreds and hundreds of years of precedents about not prosecuting your political enemies, at least in these United States. Who knows where they will stop at this point there? But, you know, we frankly have not taken a full societal reckoning here in the United States of exactly what the Democratic Party and what the Democrat lawfare complex, as I've called it, as to what exactly they have put us through for the past few years. Thank goodness, Rita, thank goodness for so many reasons Donald Trump defeated Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. But among those reasons that we should be grateful that he won is that in the alternative, hypothetical universe, if he had lost that election, there is a very, very, very real chance that he would not only not be sitting at the White House right now, he would actually be in jail. That was literally the stakes. I mean, when Americans went to vote there in November, they were actually voting on that. I don't know when Democrats are going to give this up. Sometimes, Rita, I think, what is it actually going to take this party to stop harping about these 80-20 issues on the wrong side there? What percentage of American people actually support this, as opposed to focusing on, I don't know, economic issues, bread and butter issues, pocketbook issues, immigration, crime, basic lifestyle issues? Democrats, that is the reason that your party's approval ratings and favorability ratings are in the freaking toilet right now. You want to get back in favorable position. Stop focusing on this, focusing on what your voters actually care about.
Sheesh.
Well, so much of the trouble, the far left activism we see is well financed by various groups. And on that, let's have a look at this New Yorker fluff piece featuring Alex Soros, who the New Yorker describes as an investor.
He should be in jail with his dad.
Same way they described his father, billionaire George Soros. Here he is with a political operative and Hillary's BFF, Huma Aberdeen. Interesting image, Josh. What sort of influence is he exerting right now?
Oh, Rita, he's one of the most powerful men, not just in America, you could argue in the world. I mean, he's the inheritor of George Soros' empire. I mean, he is the globalist of all globalists. So you're looking at the heir to the throne, Alex Soros, right there with Huma Abedin, Hillary Clinton's old pal there. I mean, this guy is funding all sorts of the very worst causes. Again, not just here in the United States, but in Europe, increasingly throughout the other countries of the Western Hemisphere, trying to sow the seeds of discord in Central America and South America there, the Middle East there.
He should be banned in the United States. Him and
the
his
issue of Israel and Hamas. This guy's money flows everywhere. He, at this point, Rita, is hands down one of the most dangerous men in the entire world there. And frankly, the fact that he ended up with an old Clinton hand, Anthony Weiner's ex-wife, Huma Abedin, there, it's really kind of just a cherry on the cake, I think.
Now, I'm going to ask you about Elon Musk's attacks against the so-called Big Beautiful Bill shortly, but just first, here is Elon Musk on how the likes of George Soros can take a relatively small amount of money and use it to exert enormous influence via NGOs.
It's kind of a hack to the system where someone can get an NGO stood up for a fairly small amount of money. Like George Soros was really good at this. Like George Soros is like a system hacker. Like he figured out how to hack the system. He figured out that you could leverage a small amount of money to create a nonprofit, then lobby the politicians to send a ton of money to that nonprofit. So you can take what might be, a $10 million donation to a nonprofit to create a nonprofit and leverage that into $1 billion NGO. And a nonprofit is a weird word. It's just a non-governmental organization.
Josh, he went on to explain these NGOs often have fluffy, nice-sounding names, and every year the governments will write them a big fat check. So our taxes fund this activism. Is that what was really uncovered when the USAID program was properly scrutinized?
Yes, that was exactly what happened there. And by the way, USAID remains to this day one of Elon Musk and Doge's greatest successes. Arguably their single greatest success here in the United States was uncovering the NGO rot inside of USAID. I mean, who in the world thought that the U.S. taxpayer was underwriting so-called NGOs to promote things like so-called gender-affirming care surgeries in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or DEI in Malaysia or Burma there? I mean, look, Rita, I already had a pretty low expectation, a pretty low baseline as to what I, as a U.S. taxpayer, was subsidizing there. I don't think I frankly knew the half of it until I saw some of the stuff that Elon Musk and his Doge team were trying to get out there at USAID in particular. So yes, that is exactly what he's talking about in this clip there. He's talking about these so-called NGOs. Soros happens to run one of the most infamous of them, the so-called Open Society Foundation, but there are so many. There are more than one can count. The real key here, though, is that the USAID cuts, the Doge cuts there, Congress has to actually get that into law. They're not part of the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. God willing, we'll be signing that into law sometime sooner rather than later, though.
Well, Elon Musk has expressed his deep dissatisfaction with the Big Beautiful Bill, as Trump calls it. He posted, "This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it." House Speaker Mike Johnson called Musk's criticism disappointing. But are there Republicans, Josh? I know there's a couple who've spoken publicly against this bill, but are there more who are privately troubled by it as well?
But Rita, I have to say that the break-off of the Trump-Musk romance was probably the most easily predictable thing of my entire adult lifetime. I mean, you have on one hand Donald J. Trump, probably the single most famous person, literally number one in the entire world. And on the other hand, you have the wealthiest guy in the entire world there. So you have these two just utterly larger-than-life personalities there. I mean, it's kind of only a matter of time until there ends up being some sort of unraveling. But there's also a little bit of an ideological difference between Elon Musk. Elon Musk is essentially coming from a small government, shall we say, 2010 Tea Party era starting place there. He's a guy who's taking that proverbial chainsaw as the Doge master, trying to basically cut the excesses of government there. But Donald Trump, the whole point of MAGA and America First is to ditch the old school libertarian inspired stuff and to bring in this new nationalist populist coalition there. So I'm not the least bit surprised that they found a major issue when it comes to the budget to disagree on. But yes, I do think that there frankly are more Republicans who probably held their noses to vote for this bill. By the way, that's not to say that the bill is a bad bill. I also would have voted for it, but frankly, as the least bad option. I'm still hoping, Rita, that the Senate can actually improve it. There's a lot of stuff I think the Senate can do to improve this bill and then send it back to the House to finalize the version there. But yes, it's definitely not a perfect bill. Elon Musk is right about that.
Josh, I want to play you an interview that was on CNN recently featuring an Israeli hostage held by Hamas for 505 days. This is Omar Shem Tov, and he explains here that Hamas wanted Kamala Harris to win the election.
Yes, it's him. He got me out. He got the hostages out. Before, we felt like nothing is happening, you know? And I remember for me, ever since he came into the road, they were very scared of him. Yeah, they wanted terrorists.
We're afraid of Trump.
Yeah, they wanted Kamala to be chosen.
You talked politics with them?
Yeah. They wanted Kamala to be elected. When Trump became president, yeah, the way they treated us changed.
Josh, he explained in that interview how after Trump's win, they treated him differently. They treated him better, abused him less, fed him more. And it just shows Trump's peace through strength strategy works. But on this conflict, it's still not over. Will this war continue until Hamas is no more? And is that realistic now? Because we're just going to have another variation of Hamas under a different name pop up almost immediately?
So, Rita, the latest scuttlebutt that I am hearing is that a lot of high-ranking Israelis are quite serious about actually annexing, retaking over, whatever word you want to use, half to potentially 75% of the Gaza Strip, and essentially getting a massive security buffer for the rest of the Palestinian Arabs there. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. The thing with the Israelis, Rita, is you hear a lot of tough talk. A lot of these Israeli officials, they talk about raining fire and brimstone, and then oftentimes the walk is not where the talk is there. So I personally am kind of, I will believe it when I see it kind of guy when it comes to this. I think that the most palatable option in the mid to long term, Rita, is to get some more moderate Arab coalition of Saudis, Egyptians, Emiratis there to essentially run the strip in a non-Islamist fashion with Israeli military secure control of the actual physical borders. That is probably the sweet spot as to where this ends up there. But as of now, the Israelis are talking a tough game. We'll see if they live up to it.
Now, we've seen recruitment numbers for the army soar since November, since the election result. And we had a new ad featuring Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump drop recently. And the Marine Corps, they've also have released a new ad featuring a former veteran, Vice President J.D. Vance. Let's have a quick look.
We care about excellence and we care about patriotism. And if you are awesome and you are a patriotic Marine, then we are going to do everything that we can to make you the most lethal fighting force the world has ever seen. And that is what we're doing every single day. No more quotas, no more ridiculous mumbo jumbo, no more diversity training. We believe the real strength and the real diversity in the United States Marine Corps is that you all come from every walk of life, come from every corner of America.
Josh, morale is up. Recruitment numbers are certainly up. It seems the media's relentless negative campaign against the administration isn't having the desired impact, certainly not with those who are choosing to serve their country.
You know, I kind of got chills down my spine watching that ad just now, actually. I mean, how wonderful is this? I mean, turning around the military's recruitment crisis is one of the #1 top goals in all of American foreign policy, domestic policy, whatever you want to call it. J.D. Vance, by the way, as a former Marine himself, one of the highest ranking former Marines, former military combat veterans in American history there. He's the perfect person to read an ad like this. So, by the way, is Pete Hegseth. I mean, one of the reasons, Rita, that I was so bullish on Pete Hegseth as America's defense secretary is that he's a young, telegenic, well-spoken guy who has fought in numerous post 9/11 wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and so forth there. So when you have J.D. Vance there in the vice presidential suite, when you have Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon there, this is going to inspire morale. Get rid of the DEI. Get rid of the wokeism there. Just make the military the world's single most ruthless, efficient, lethal fighting force. That's all these young recruits want. And thank God that's what they're getting.
Well, the numbers speak for themselves. We saw this enormous surge right after the election result, and the numbers have stayed up ever since. Now, Josh, I played a clip of Stephen Miller earlier in the program, refusing to accept in an interview with CNN the anchor's use of incorrect terms like undocumented migrant as opposed to illegal alien or illegal immigrant. You've had some thoughts on this. I know you wrote about this for Newsweek. Why is it so important that conservatives push back when the left tries to use their preferred terms?
Flowery language.
So I love Stephen Miller. I'm a longtime unabashed Stephen Miller fan. I love the fact that he is wielding so much power in the Donald Trump White House there. But this particular fight, Rita, is deeply important. For literally decades, the left has understood what both George Orwell and Saul Alinsky, the great left-wing Chicago community organizer, they both preached a very similar message, which is that he who controls the language necessarily controls the discourse. You control the discourse, you control people's minds, you control how they deal and how they interpret and process reality there. But the left uses all sorts of ridiculous euphemistic language, so-called gender-affirming care when it comes to physical or chemical castration, undocumented immigrants for illegal aliens there, bodily autonomy when it comes to snuffing out even a third trimester unborn child. I could go on and on and on. Essentially, no matter what issue you look at there, the left here in America has mastered the art of the euphemistic imperative. And Stephen Miller, I think, is leading this charge to fight back against it. But the onus now is on everyone else to continue this there. You cannot let the left control the terms of our discourse, because when you allow them to do that, they're ultimately going to set themselves up for victory in our great cold roiling civil war in this country.
Absolutely. It is so important. You do not cede linguistic territory to the radical left. I think conservatives have been guilty of doing that for a long time. Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita.
So they're basically going to use the $20 million to see if they can get men back into the party. I don't think it's going to work, but whatever. That was the main goal of watching this. But, I mean, it's just good to see all the liberal craziness going on. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great afternoon. Bye.